The readings for Sunday, July 2nd. Once again, guys, I am truly sorry for getting this uploaded on a late time, very late, comparative to my other upload times. Typical weekend routine for me now. Just neglect my subscribers. But, yeah, I'm just doing weekend stuff, you know. You guys got to understand that, like, I've got other hobbies and interests and whatnot outside of Orthodoxy. I have a family. I have a full-time job. So I try to be as attentive as I can. Some of you guys are very patient and just wait, and I don't know what you do. Just wait until it gets uploaded anyways. Looking at you, Slowboy Whiteboard. A couple others. But yeah, it is tricky for me on the weekends when I don't have these recorded in advance. And I appreciate all of your guys' understanding on the matter. So yeah, without further ado, our Matins Gospel reading was from the book of Luke, chapter 24, verses 1 through 12. Now, on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they and certain other women with them came to the tomb, bringing the spices which they had prepared. But they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. Then they went in and did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. And it happened, as they were greatly perplexed about this, that behold, two men stood by them in shining garments. Then, as they were afraid and bowed their faces to the earth, they said to them, "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but he is risen. Remember how he spoke to you when he was still in Galilee, saying, 'The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, and be crucified, and the third day rise again.'" And they remembered his words. Then they returned from the tomb and told all these things to the 11 and to all the rest. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them, who told these things to the apostles. And their words seemed to them like idle tales, and they did not believe them. But Peter arose and ran to the tomb, and stooping down, he saw the linen clothes lying by themselves, and he departed, marveling to himself at what had happened. All right. Some footnotes from the Orthodox Study Bible. So, for verse 1, the first day of the week was the day after the Sabbath, Sunday, in which the Christian tradition is called the Lord's Day, the day of worship, as noted in Acts chapter 20, verse 7. For the word spices, it says to see the footnote at chapter 23, verses 55 and 56, which is directly above this footnote. It's literally the very last footnote before this, so we'll go ahead and read it. His rest in the tomb fulfills the image of his birth in a cave. See chapter 2, verse 7, and reveals the ultimate purpose of his coming. The faith of the women, while stronger than that of the hiding disciples, was still imperfect in that they were prepared for the corruption of Christ's body. For the word Sabbath, it says, as God rested from his work of creation on the original Sabbath, in Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, so now Christ rests from the work of the new creation on the Sabbath. Thus, he gives the Sabbath its ultimate meaning and fulfills the law even in death. At Matins of Holy Saturday, we sing, "This is the most blessed Sabbath on which Christ sleeps in order to rise on the third day." For verse 2, It just says to see Matthew chapter 28, verse 2. The stone is rolled away not to let the all-powerful Lord out, but to let us witness his resurrection. For verse 4, these men in shining garments were angels. I think that much should be pretty obvious. For verses 5 through 7, in order to dispel any doubt, the angel confirms his message by recalling Christ's own words. In calculating the third day, the first day is Friday, the day on which Christ died before sundown. The second is Saturday, the Sabbath on which Christ rested in the tomb. The third day, which begins after sundown on Saturday, is the day of resurrection, Sunday. For verse 10, certain fathers teach that Mary, the mother of James, was the wife of Alphaeus, and this James was one of the 12, as noted in chapter 6, verse 15. Most, however, hold that this is the Virgin Mary, being in fact the stepmother of a different James, quote, the Lord's brother, end quote. See Matthew chapter 13, verse 55, and compare to Mark chapter 15, verses 40 and 47. The Virgin Mary appears in certain icons of the myrrh-bearing women, and in a hymn by St. John of Damascus, we sing, quote, the angel cried to the lady full of grace, rejoice, O pure Virgin, your Son is risen from his 3 days in the tomb, end quote. The epistle reading is from St. Paul's letter to the Hebrews, chapter 9, verses 1 through 7. Then indeed, even the first covenant had ordinances of divine service in the earthly sanctuary. For a tabernacle was prepared, the first part, in which was the lampstand, the table, and the showbread, which is called the sanctuary, and behind the second veil, the part of the tabernacle which is called the holiest of all, which had the golden censer and the ark of the covenant overlaid on all sides with gold, in which were the golden pot that had the manna, Aaron's rod that budded, and the tablets of the covenant. And above it were the cherubim of glory, overshadowing the mercy seat. Of these things we cannot now speak in detail. Now, when these things had been thus prepared, the priests always went into the first part of the tabernacle, performing the services. But into the second part the high priest went alone, once a year, not without blood, which he offered for himself and for the people's sins, committed in ignorance. All right. Some footnotes from the Orthodox Study Bible. So, for this exact passage, verses 1 through 7, it says a description of the Mosaic tabernacle, which prefigures the heavenly altar. This message is read during feasts of the Virgin Mary and the Advent to describe the mystery of the incarnation of the Son of God. Mary's womb was prepared to be Christ's tabernacle, the very dwelling place of God. For verses 2 and 3, a most important detail in Hebrews is the inner veil, the second veil. It separates the holy place, as noted in verse 2, the phrase the sanctuary, from the most holy place, as noted in verse 3, the holiest of all, which contains the Ark of the Covenant, and into which only the high priest can enter, and only once a year. The inner veil forms the locus of the liturgical practice of the Old Covenant, as noted in verses 6 through 10, and reveals its imperfection. The people could not draw near to God. See especially verse 8. At his death, Christ solved this alienation, as noted in Matthew chapter 27, verse 51. For verse 4, the Ark of the Covenant contained the relics, as it were, of Israel, the pot of manna, Aaron's rod, and the tablets of the law. For verse 5, God is enthroned upon the cherubim. Hence, God's throne in Israel's midst, the mercy seat, has a cherub on each side. The Orthodox Christian altar is flanked by cherubim. These representations, along with the pictures of cherubim on the inner veil, as noted in Exodus chapter 26, verse 31, and the beauty and detailed workmanship of everything made for the tabernacle, serve as the icons of the Old Testament. This, and numerous other passages, put to rest the fear that the second commandment, as noted in Exodus chapter 20, verses 4 through 6, prohibits all imagery. God cannot be represented because divine nature is unknowable and hence cannot be depicted. However, when the Son becomes man, the human nature of God the Son can be, and is, imaged. If you guys are curious to explore more of that theology, I highly recommend St. John of Damascus. I believe, pretty sure of the 8th century. Because it was during iconoclasm. Did an excellent apologetic on the defense of icons. I believe it is called, I'm pretty sure it's called On the Defense of Icons. Or iconography. Somebody can comment and correct me if needed. It's something by that, but it's by St. John Damascus. And he gets into the whole theology of graven images versus, what depictions we can use, and veneration versus worship, and pretty much just dunks all over Protestant talking points, over 1,000 years ago. Like, this is already a done, settled issue. But I nevertheless recommend that treatise if you are interested in exploring that topic a little bit more. And for verses 6 through 10, so a handful of verses past what we read until today. Feel free to read up until verse 10 in your own Bibles or apps if you wish. But it says that while priests entered the holy place daily, only the high priest could enter the most holy place, and only once a year, on the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur. He entered with the animal blood of the atonement sacrifice, which was offered first for his own sins, and then for the sins of the people. This annual sacrifice reveals the imperfect temporary status of the Old Covenant. For 1, only one can enter God's presence. 2, that man cannot enter continually. 3, he must enter occasionally to repeat the sacrifice for sins, a sacrifice good only for a limited time. Excuse me, guys. 4, this sacrifice deals entirely with the materials from this age, which are imperfect and impermanent. It cannot begin a participation in the age to come, as noted in verse 10, with the phrase, the time of reformation. And number 5, it deals mainly with the outer man. It is superficial and cannot purify man's heart and mind, let alone restore fallen human nature. The liturgical gospel reading is from the book of Matthew, chapter 8, verses 5 through 13. Now, when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, pleading with him, saying, Lord, my servant is lying at home, paralyzed, dreadfully tormented. And Jesus said to him, I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word, and my servant will be healed. For I am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to this one, Go, and he goes, and to another, Come, and he comes. And to my servant, Do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard it, he marveled, and said to those who followed, "Assuredly, I say to you, I have not found such great faith, not even in Israel. And I say to you that many will come from east and west, and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom will be cast out into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Then Jesus said to the centurion, "Go your way, and as you have believed, so let it be done for you." And his servant was healed at that same hour. All right, some footnotes from the Orthodox Study Bible. So for verse 5, a centurion, in other words, a Gentile, because he's a Roman. In case you guys don't know, centurion was a specific type of Roman soldier dispatched to the occupied land of Judea. I don't know what our modern day equivalent would be, a colonel or a major or whatever, but he was Roman security detail, basically. Which means he was a Gentile, a non-Jew. So a centurion commanded 100... Oh, here we go. I should have just shut up and read. It says right here. A centurion, or a Gentile, commanded 100 men in a Roman legion. So there we go. Jesus is the Savior of all, and in him ethnic distinctions are void. For verse 7, "I will come" has been read as a question by many Greek scholars. Shall I come? Quote unquote. Regardless, Jesus is ready to deal graciously with this Gentile and even to enter his house, which would make him unclean in the eyes of the Jews. For verses 8 and 9, the centurion expresses unusual faith in calling Jesus, who is a Jew, Lord. The statement, "Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof," is frequently quoted in liturgical text as an ideal expression of humility. Yeah, how humble, really. For verse 10, twice in the Gospels it is said of Jesus that he marveled. Oh, how about that? Never noticed. Number 1, at the unbelief in his hometown of Nazareth, of course. And that is in Mark chapter 6, verse 6. Yeah, he's probably just in utter dismay, like these people. And then, and number 2, at the belief of this foreigner. And for verses 11 and 12, here Jesus nullifies any ideas of ethnic superiority. The rejected sons of the kingdom are both the Jews who deny Christ and those raised in the church who do not live their faith. Outer darkness and weeping and gnashing are descriptions of the state of the unrighteous dead in Sheol, or Hades, in the Jewish tradition, as noted in Enoch chapter 103, verse 8. There are common expressions in Matthew, specifically chapter 13, verse 42 and 50, chapter 22, verse 13, chapter 24, verse 51, and chapter 25, verse 30, and also occur in Luke, specifically Luke chapter 13, verse 28. Well, that puts a lid on today, everybody. Dios mío, I am so hot right now. Just for context, I don't know if you hear the fan in the background. I'm sitting in a camper that's unair conditioned. I don't know why I'm trying to say it that way. There's no air conditioning. And, man, oh man, I don't know what part of the world you guys are living in, but we had a gnarly rainstorm. It poured, soaked to the earth for like 5 minutes at like the start of the afternoon, and then went right away and the sun came out. And it's been baking well into the 80s. So that combination I'm a lizard, my wife tells me. I like the heat. I like a good balmy breeze at night. But, dude, this is like sauna levels. This is like the world is like this is like Florida right now, where even I have my limits, and like this is so. Yeah, I'm just sitting out in this camper, just in the truest sense of the phrase, sweating profusely, just vigorously sweating to get these readings uploaded for you guys. So I do hope you appreciated it. I'm probably gonna go jump in a pool right now, and yeah, before I hopefully can get tomorrow's readings uploaded tonight. We shall see. But nevertheless, I thank you guys once again for listening in each day. It means a lot to me, and what would mean even more to me, as always, is if you guys just included me in your daily prayer lists. I'm a sinner. I certainly need them. Yeah. Thank you very much. Hope to... I was going to say see you guys. I don't see any of you. I hope you guys check in tomorrow for Monday's readings. And take care. Enjoy the rest of what you have left in your weekend.